The people who are thinnest eat the most sugar and the least fat, and the people who are biggest eat the least sugar and the most fat. I think insulin resistance is mainly caused by how heavy you are or being too heavy for you. So some people are able to get heavier before they start to have unhealthy consequences, and some people not. But I think that's the main driver. If you are thin, you can eat all the sugar you want, and you've got a very flat response. So it's not the sugar per se; it's the positive energy balance that eating too much sugar can cause. So eating too much sugar means because it's really easy to eat, it's easy to eat too many calories, and that's the consequence. So I think the reason not to eat sugar is because it'll help you not to gain weight or to maintain a healthy body weight. There is a slight caveat, two slight caveats. One is if someone's already got type 2 diabetes, where you're not very able to control your blood sugar at all, you might want to recommend a slightly different diet which causes less rise in sugar than somebody who's in the general healthy population. But the main reason we want to eat less sugar is sugar often is energy dense. It's of those reasons rather than sugar per se being a problem. We've done some epidemiological research using UK biobanks. The people who are thinnest in the population eat the most sugar. So the people who are thinnest eat the most sugar and the least fat, and the people who are biggest eat the least sugar and the most fat. So so sugar's important, and restricting sugar, particularly in sugary drinks, is a helpful thing to do. I think there's risks associated with narrowing the whole discussion to say sugar's the enemy and we don't want to have sugar, because I think there's risk, because that means that you have blind spots for all sorts of other things in the diet as well. So I think we have to be holistic and not just say it's sugar that's the bad thing.
Yeah. And what about, are all sugars equal?
There's a few points, a really important points. So you've got sugars, which are simple sugars, and then starches, which are lots of sugars which are connected together in a chain. So your potatoes and your pasta and your bread are kind of starches, and your sugary drinks and your sweeties and chocolate are the simple sugars. So that's a broad classification. We sometimes consider this thing called glycemic index, which is how much eating that food causes your blood sugar level to rise. So, for example, lentils have quite a lot of carbohydrate in, right? Starches. But they don't cause your blood sugar to rise very much, whereas consuming sugar does. So it's not all carbohydrates are equal. And we have to consider not just the macronutrients, so carbohydrate, protein, and fat, but often the quality of the macronutrients. So if you've got a high carbohydrate food which has lots of fiber associated with it, like brown rice or lentils, that's really very, very healthy. Whereas eating spoonfuls of table sugar isn't, right? You might have similar carbohydrates. So it's not just the carbohydrate content. If you look at the epidemiology and look at risk of mortality from all causes, what you find is the lowest risk in the population are people who have about between 40 and 55% of their calories from carbohydrate. So people with higher amounts of carbohydrate than that have a higher risk of mortality, and people with lower. So people who have these very, very low carbohydrate are at higher risk of mortality. I think we have to bear that in mind. So the sweet spot for carbohydrate is half or just under half of your calories that you consume are carbohydrate. But within that, you probably want to focus more on more low glycemic carbohydrates, which have more fiber associated with them, and less sweeties and sugary drinks. So it's not just the amount of carbohydrate. I think going to a very low level of carbohydrate is probably not optimal.